With Foo Fighters being one of my all-time favorite bands, it was great to see a stand named after them. And of course, I mean, even if you like whatever genre, there's bound to be a stand eventually named after them if they're popular enough. But it was really cool because the idea of basically the stand and the user being one of the same, and not having to necessarily defeat them and kill them like you're traditionally used to when it comes to anyone working with the big bad. And the fact that we're actually able to save and make it into an ally, I think is really interesting and will provide for some interesting episodes coming up here because episodes 7 and 8 were really well done. I mean, it was obviously going to be too good to be true to save Jotaro. I just wasn't expecting his stand disc to be there because I thought with stealing of the stand disc, they wanted the power because it's honestly one of the most powerful stands you could have. But the fact that the discs, you can't use them if your body doesn't accept it. So the fact that it's there most likely means that Whitesnake wasn't able to use Star Platinum. And we saw what it did to Jolene. It kind of made her mind get aura'd, and she got flung into a tractor, right? So it's clearly not something most people, if anyone other than JoJo, probably could use. But at the very least, they're 50% of the way to their objective, right? Not only do we receive one of the most powerful stands, we also, at the very least, have one more step closer to the objective. Unfortunately, probably the most important disc of them all wasn't there, and that was the memory disc. And the fact that that's actually what they were after all along, I mean, I'm wondering what was inside his head that he needs so much. Probably something related to Dio. I imagine it's like what happened to Dio or something like that. Like, that's probably the overall, like, you know, what happened with their whole adventure to Egypt and everything like that. But still, it's great to see that they at the very least made progress, plus a new ally, plus we got, once again, creative stand fights. Because, honestly, I've heard nothing but good things about the stand fights in this part. And seriously, I'm blown away because the idea of like unraveling your body in the case of Jolene, it's really interesting because as we saw in one of the episodes, basically she got punched through her chest. She would have died normally, but because of all the unraveling she did, she basically got to catch the stand off guard. The idea of Kiss is still remaining to be really cool in my opinion because, you know, one of the coolest, I think, things we've seen with Kiss so far is actually when she's carrying the one body away and basically this thing's like charging after her and everything like that and you're like, oh shit, what's gonna go down? And then she rips it, the arm comes back, she hurts herself but she gets away. A lot of cool things going on there, but at the same time showing like how brutal it can be for the user itself. The whole idea of like a traitor situation and once again really using the prison setting to their advantage. I know there's going to be a lot of people probably saying, oh, it's not this grand, epic, go across the world, destroy all evil sort of a journey. Rather, it's set in a prison. Anytime a story sets itself in a prison, I love it because of the limitations. Plus how different it forces the characters to behave. Had Jolene not have to like worry about guards and keeping herself in that prison, she would be able to potentially solve a lot of things much easier. But given the fact that she's bound to not only destroy Whitesnake but get her father's disc back, I mean, it forces her to be a lot more careful and maybe not utilize things to the best of her ability all the time. But the idea of having like a temporary, like, you get to go search for the missing people, but we're going to bound you by these bracelets because you're dangerous criminals, and if you get 50 meters away, we're going to blow you to literal smithereens. And I wasn't expecting to see someone actually get blown apart. I thought either it'd be a bluff or, I don't know, they just wouldn't end up doing or committing to it. And to see it, I was like, okay, well, that girl's clearly not coming back. And then, you know, lo and behold, Foo Fighters decides to use her body as basically a cover-up so she can continue to aid in Jolene, given the fact that Jolene is the reason Foo Fighters is still a thing right now. It's so cool, though, because when the traitor kind of like started to get brought up, because there's 6 characters, but the guard mentions 5 of them, I was like, okay, clearly there's probably going to be more than one, but I wasn't expecting all 3. And the idea of like that back and forth and when Jolene just gave up and started hitting, because while they were fighting, one of the characters almost passed out. So when the nosebleed gets revealed, of course, you're like, okay, well, that's got to be it. But then the arm. So I was like, okay, they're both probably in on it, but they're trying to pin the blame on the other because as long as one of them survives, they can continue to protect the disc. And then the reveal of what was going down with those microbots and how it formed into all those different people. Really cool reveal. And I just love how this part, it's not going so crazy that it's like, okay, that's just completely unbelievable. No, like there's enough twist to these reveals to make you say, how did I not see that one coming? without it being so big brain that it's impossible to figure out before the punchline gets there. Foo Fighters, though, was really, really cool because after seeing the reveal of like Whitesnake and everything that went down the past few episodes, I was like, what type of like stands are they really going to show that's really going to flex their creativity even more than what we've already seen? The whole dream sequence, the weather, kind of like reading the weather and the airflow so a sniper can shoot. And then Foo Fighters comes along and just from the personality being so different than what we're typically used to the actual ability of how it uses the water from either just a little droplet in the bucket, throwing water on you, taking over your body, and the fact that the most natural location, turning on all the water so you basically have unlimited power. But the fact of the matter is, you're not going to hear the tractor starting, so even though you're consuming my body, the tractor's already going out in the middle of a field, and it doesn't matter how far you run, you're going to be touching, it's kind of like the desert, right? It's just going to melt your body and suck away that moisture. Of all the ways it could have ended, I didn't think like Jolene would necessarily hate Foo Fighters, but I wasn't expecting to save either, because when we see Hermes like pick up the dirt to finish it off and then Jolene comes in, it's interesting because logically it makes complete sense, and I think it's something really only a select handful of JoJo characters probably would have done in that circumstances, but it goes to show you the type of protagonist she is. There was no loyalty to why it was protecting the disc. It was protecting it for its own, reasons for existing. It's not this loyalty that Whitesnake is this amazing person who he worships, but no, it's just literally protecting things. So the fact of the matter is you're going to protect the disc for us, and hopefully, we'll have an ally as well, because you're going to need all the allies you can get, and given the fight Foo Fighters put them up to, I mean, you'd much rather that on your side than anything. Though I love how JoJo meme-worthy Foo Fighters actually became in this episode when it started like licking on the ground. Oh, I can use a cup, and then just like start splashing it in. Really funny stuff. And just the idea that, because they're going to get searched, how do you protect Start Platinum, right? There's no way. So the idea of just making the boobs bigger. I mean, this show knows how to use that fan service right, and use fan service right JoJo has always done, I honestly think. Really, I think these 2 episodes of reviews have been going really swell. Like, I mean, these past couple, 7 and 8, sets up the whole like prison situation with the escapees, what went down, of course we know because we saw at the beginning of the episode, and then kind of concluding it with kind of like an ally in the making here. It was really cool because the side cast and just what we've seen of personalities I'm really digging, because it's not like I necessarily have a favorite character yet, but I appreciate all of them. Jolene is probably my top pick right now, and it's no surprise that JoJo protagonists are always pretty damn well done if I have to say so. But if Hermes is on the screen, or Foo Fighters, or any of the side casts, it's interesting how memorable they are. Even that one like prison guard with like the crocodile, how like he's just so sketchy. It just reminds me like he's from Florida or something. I don't know, he's just so weird. And the fact that like when he talks shit, he uses the puppet to get out there. There's just so many wild personalities, and in a jail like this, that's probably exactly what you want to see. And it'll be interesting because the body Foo Fighters took over, it was mentioned, is like the bully character. So now that it's Foo Fighters, I imagine it's not going to be bullied, and if you try to, you're probably not going to sleep very well, if at all, ever again. But I mean, this show is great. I am loving it. It's creative with its stands, loving the characters, and the setting is without doubt my personal favorite just because I love prison themes, and this is really utilizing it in very JoJo fashion. But let me know your thoughts and feelings. Any thoughts you might have on what might happen in the future. If you haven't checked out those episodes yet, please, I'll know if you're lying to me, because it's very clear who's watched episodes and they're trying to pretend like they're predicted, so I'm keeping my eye on you. But let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.